good friend.
Okay, so we'll probably get a few people coming in at the start and we'll just admit them as they join. That's fine. So welcome, guys, to today's Writing Picture Books for Children. Just to let you know, we are recording this session today to upload to YouTube so that people can enjoy it, even if they couldn't attend today. So this is a really good one. We're really excited about this workshop. We have Robin Adolphs, who is joining us to teach us all about writing picture books. And today's objective, I believe, is we're going to try and get all the ingredients to write a first draft. And I just wanted to let you all know we will have some more workshops coming up with Robin. And the next workshop coming up with Robin will be about editing that first draft. I'll share later in this workshop, I'll share the link to the booking. So if you'd like to book for it, you can do that. So today we're looking at writing a first draft with Robin, and next workshop, which will be April 16th on a Sunday, we're looking at bringing our drafts along. We can share some parts of our drafts and Robin's going to help us with the editing of those drafts. So this is going to be a progressive workshop going through all the steps to submitting or self-publishing, depending on what you'd like to do. And so it's going to be a great little group. We've kept the numbers fairly low so that we can really intensely work together on this. As I said, there may be some people who've forgotten when this is on and they may join a little bit later, and that's fine. We'll just let them join as they do. So Rainforest Writing Retreat, we are very happy to put on these workshops. We have Robin Adolphs today, who writes picture books. She writes amazing picture books in everybody's favourite, which is Brave Denny. Everybody loves Brave Denny. And she writes lots of fun ones, and she's going to tell us a little bit more about her works as well. But yeah, Robin, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. I'm Robin. It's lovely to see some of you there. Hi, Elwyn. I can't hear you. Can you?
Elwyn has muted herself. You can choose to keep yourself muted, guys, if you like. You can choose to show your picture or not. It's totally up to you. If you do have any questions today and you're a little bit concerned because Robin's talking at the time, open up the chat room. So if you look along the bottom of your screen, if you're new to Zoom, there is a button that says chat. We will be using the chat room today. Maybe if you write something and you want to share your idea in that, you can put it in the chat room as well. We'll put some links in there today. So it's a good idea to open that chat room so you can see what we're saying. So, but if you choose to say hello, you can, or if you choose to mute, you can. If you have someone watching television right behind you or something, then maybe mute it when you can so it's not distracting.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks, Robin.
All right. Thank you very much, May, and thank you very much, Chris, for giving me the opportunity to do this, to share my passion for writing picture books. So what we're going to try to do today is go through some very simple steps about the components of writing stories, and actually by the end of the 1.5 hours, you will have written down a few elements of what's going to make a picture book. So I hope you all have either a computer handy or a pen and paper or something like that. So because as we go along, you're going to be doing stuff. It won't be me just talking at you. So as we go, so today, all right, here we go. Can we change that screen, please, Charmaine?
Absolutely.
Okay, we're going to look at what a picture book is anyway, and types of picture books. Then we're going to do a story web. We're going to write a character, we're going to look at considerations and the rule of three, the 3 R's, and then we're going to write a story together. But I would suggest as we go along and we're talking about characters, you start to drop down a few character ideas. When we're talking about problems, think about some problems a child might have and think about the setting that's all occurring in. I wouldn't worry too much about subplots and what the deep and meaningful is of the thing, because at the moment we're just going to write a story and you'll find that that will emerge. That will come out all by itself without you even thinking about it. Okay, so what is a picture book? Ding! Definition. Picture book's a story written mainly for children that use a combination of both text and illustrations or pictures alone to tell a simple story. Be careful when you Google and type in what's a picture book, because you might get some very interesting adult ones coming up. So always write children in there. It's different. I did that once. So picture books are mostly for 3 to 8-year-olds, pages 30 to 34. However, depending on the age group you're writing for, you might just have 16 pages, multiples of 4. And average count of words is 500 words. However, that's just a round figure. Some pictures have way less. And if you're writing for the very young children, you will find that you don't need 500 words. So I'm going to show you my latest creation, which is Mookie. Can you see that? He's a child, he's a moon kid. And this book does certainly not have 500 pages. It has a few pages, a few words on each page, because it's for a younger age group. So, all right. So, sorry. Now, illustrations in a picture book. Illustrations are so important. You can actually have a picture book without words, but you can't have a picture book without pictures. So, and there are some very, very good picture books that have been written with just pictures, and they're so well done that you can actually read the story in the picture. However, in a picture book with a text, then the illustrations and the text work in harmony, like music, like the words and the music. They go together, they blend. So, but a lot of the part of the story will be told in the illustration. So the trick here, when you write a picture book, is to leave out the bits that the illustration can show. And that will be emotions, a lot of emotions. You can't talk about it in a text, you leave in the illustrations. Setting, you probably don't have to go into great long length about where the setting is and what it's like, because it's pretty obviously there in the picture. So that's important. So what else is a picture book? All right, the format, the way you lay a picture book out. The format, here we go. There are many ways you can lay a picture book out. Once you've written it, which we haven't done yet, which we will do. Many options. You can have picture on the left, text on the right, if you just have a look at that. All different ways of laying out a picture book. And sometimes you'll find that when you do a double page spread like this, which is when one part of the picture goes across to the other, or the whole scene goes across, that's usually a focal point of the story. It's something very important in the story. However, we're not going to worry about that till next time. So that's what a picture book is. Now, we're just about at the stage now where we're going to start writing. So we're going to have a look at a story web. Now, what is a story? A story is the character that you choose as your main character, the problem this character has, and the setting, and they all constitute the story. So that's what a story is. Now, you can have a main character, you will have a main character, but you may also have a couple of supporting characters. So if it's a young boy you choose, he'll have a couple of mates or something like that. We steer away from adults being the main character in a picture book. So the story is all about the main character having a problem that they solve. So nobody gets rescued. They just fix it all up themselves. Now, the setting's interesting because depending on where the setting takes place, it can affect
Looks like we've had a little freeze there on Robin. So I just did say in the chat area then that absolutely make notes if you like, but Robin will be sharing a booklet from this at the end. She has it all printed up and she'll share you, we'll grab your emails and she'll email that out to you. So she does have some great activities coming up in a moment for you. Has anyone got any comments that they'd like to say about this story web? So you'll notice a bit like food webs, if you teach science, the arrows are going both ways because everything affects everything else. If you'd like, guys, maybe in the chat room now, while we have a moment, while Robin's internet reconnects, maybe just have a quick introduction of yourself. And do you already write picture books? Are you interested? Do you think this is something you've been wanting to do? Do you write other things? Like, feel free to introduce yourself. Great little self-promo time now. Pop it in the chat room so we can all see who's here.
Yes, that'd be good because I can't see everybody actually. So
yeah, great. Robin's back, but still feel free to chat as much as you like in the chat room, guys. Thanks, Robin.
So sorry, I'm having a few.
So that's okay. We're on the story web.
All right. This story web. So what we're going to do, we're going to develop a couple of characters, and we're going to think of a couple of problems for these characters, and we're going to think about where it happens. So I hope you've got your pencils poised, and what I'd like you to do, yes, see Alwyn's comment about Brave Danny. Alwyn was actually the person who asked me to write Brave Danny. So anyway, so what we're going to do is jot down notes. You might have ideas in your heads. You might think, I want to write a story about a memory I have from childhood, which I have done on many occasions. And you might have experienced something with a child that you want to write about. But when you write a child's book, a book for children, they have to be things that children will like and will enjoy, because you will lose them. So if you go outside and you go to the park and watch them playing, or if you've got children or grandchildren, watch what they like to do, because these are good things. These are good themes for stories. And anyway, we'll get on to the next part, which is characters. We're going to develop a character. So you have to start developing your own character now. And because we're so short of time, can't elaborate too much on everything. So, character prompts. So, what I would like you to do, make notes about your character or choose one below. So, a character from your childhood. Look, it could be who you played with, and who knows, a child that you know, or an Australian animal. So make notes about each of those. Choose a character from your childhood memory, jot it down. A child that you know, jot it down. An Australian animal, jot it down. Now, to help you do that, once you've written down those three things, look at the list below and give them these attributions here. So give them a name, approximate age and gender, physical characteristics, 3 intrinsic characteristics, impulsive, witty, kind. You wouldn't necessarily make your main character nasty, but you could make him or her naughty in some sense, because it's throughout the story they're going to change, because whatever happens in the story is going to change. Is going to change the child, actually. So they should plot. That's what's emerging, the subplot. Their strengths. Are they bold? Their strengths. They're bold, they're loyal, they're clever, they're flaw, and they must have a flaw. Kids relate to kids with flaws, and they're easily frightened. They're in a bad situation. Then what are their likes and dislikes? This is only a prompt, by the way. You can come up with your own. What do they like? What do they dislike? Now, out of some of this will come the problem, because if they like something and they can't do what they like to do, already a problem. And what are their fears? Are they frightened of the dark? Are they frightened of being left out of a group? There's so many things you can be frightened of. Let's forget the monster under the bed. What's their greatest desire? What do they want? It can be as simple as they want ice cream, but they're not allowed to have it. I mean, that's just a silly one. But and what are they afraid of? What do they want? So maybe their friend is unhappy. So their greatest desire is for their friend to be happy. So then that would lead to a plot, a problem. Like, how is this person going to help the other person attain their goal? So, and then give your character, think about your character. Fine, I hope you're all furiously writing.
Robin, can I just ask, is there a general age group your character should be if you're choosing a child?
If you're going to be writing for, I always say, when people say to me, when should you start reading to children? I say, oh, in the womb, really. So there are books for that lower end, for that end, but say that again,
your character that you create, your child character that you have in this picture.
Okay.
Is there an ideal age that they should be in the picture book?
Maybe about the same age as the child that's reading it. Although children like to read up a little bit. So a 4-year-old's quite happy to be reading. I mean, let's take Eddie, for example. And if you can see me, that's about an emu. So he's an older emu, a juvenile, I guess, emu. So they can relate to that. This one from Grandpa's Gold, the little fella in here, he's probably about 5, 6, but you can read these stories to children who are younger. You really can. And the beauty of a picture book is that they promote discussion. So if you're reading a story to a child and they don't understand something, oh, what a wonderful opportunity to sit down and say, oh yeah, well, this happens and that happens. And you'll see that when you go here. So a picture book does more than read them a story. It actually opens up pathways for you or a parent to read to their children and then extrapolate on that. And it teaches, so that the fundamental things are, it should be fun. If you're going to write a book for children to read in bed. This is how I sold one the other day. I said, oh, this is my series of Murky books. I said to them, well, they're very short. They take about 2 minutes to read. And they give you that feeling when you're finished. And someone said, I'll have the 4. So, because parents are tired, they don't want to be sitting there forever reading a long story. So, but every story has a different sort of meaning. Let me see. Pirates Don't Read, which ended up being shortlisted for Speech Pathology Awards. That was fun, but it used a lot of devices, which we'll get to later, to make the story happen. But so first of all, have you written? Just give me the thumbs up. Have you all written down 3 potential characters? Can't see any thumbs.
How are we going with that, guys? If you want to share what your character ideas are, feel free to share in the chat as well. If there's ever anything you want to actually speak up because you really want to ask, that's okay too.
Yeah, please. And I know it's like dumping it on you, but it's trying to, sometimes the impulsivity of it and doing it just like that doesn't mean you're locked in. You're not locked into those characters.
Robin, can a book be about a group of children?
That's a good question. It can be. Can you think of an example of a book with a group of children? Very young children?
I know.
Well, yeah, for me, it was the one about the different languages, but that was not so much a story, it was a celebration. So where you were learning to say hello in different languages, so each child was in there. But
so that was inclusive.
yeah.
Yeah.
So you think if you did have a group, should there be one person more forward than the other?
I believe so. I believe so.
Okay, good to know.
Personally. So
I think of Enid Blyton's famous five.
Yes.
yeah,
All
yeah.
the little rascals.
But maybe in a picture book, you don't have that space to go into every character.
no, and remember, you only have approximately 500 words to do this whole thing in. So you just can't afford to put any word in that story that's
Not valuable.
earn its place. It's just got to actually
Yeah.
earn its place. So if you're writing about a group, you'd have to keep calling them a group or the team or whatever, which makes it harder for young children to relate unless they've got their own group of friends. But you've only got a short, it has to be tight. So I would say at this stage, doing this for many of you for the first time, I would say I wouldn't do it as a team.
Mm-hmm.
I've never done it, but now you've given me a challenge. I'll try and do it. But, you have, I mean, in Pirates Don't Read, you have this young fellow who is the main person, and Pirates Don't Read comes from the fact that he was the youngest pirate on the Salty Sardine. So there's another thing. So I've introduced the character and his name. His name's Patrick. Patrick was the youngest and smallest pirate on the Salty Sardine. So I've introduced the character, told a little bit about him, and I've given it a setting, all on that one page. And that's what you've got to strive for, getting as much information for those three elements that make up a story into the first three, maybe, pictures. Because he was the youngest and smallest pirate on board, Patrick had a lot of people telling him what to do. And so it goes on like that.
Robin, we've had another question from Robin Thomas, and it says, I'm thinking about having a dog for a main character. Is that workable?
Absolutely, Robin. Absolutely. The thing with that is a lot of people want to write about their dog. So that's good. However, when you write a story, your story has to have universal appeal. So when you write about a dog, I know exactly which dog you want to write about.
Oh, we've had a little freeze. Yeah, so Robin Thomas, do you want to tell us which dog you want to write about? Because now we want to know.
Just unmute yourself, doll.
Yeah. If you want to.
Yes.
Okay.
You do that.
I've been thinking about this for a little while. I have a black Pomeranian who's schizo and crazy and lovable. And there used to be a little series of picture books about a little black, I don't know if it was a Yorkshire Terrier. I forget his name. He had a kind of a Scottish name, and there's a whole series of books. Anyway, I was thinking about writing about
Mary McClary?
Yeah, that's the one.
Oh, Emma's come up with it too. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was thinking about writing a picture book and maybe more about a very naughty dog who was always getting into trouble and how he got out of trouble and all the little escapes that he's gotten into. And listening to Robin talk, I was wondering if I guess I need to introduce the child who owns the dog. So I don't think, Robin, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think it could just be about the dog. I think you need to have a huge, because it's not like an Australian animal where you make them like people. It's actually a little dog. So is it better to have a main character like a little boy who's always wanted a dog and who can't have a dog because they live in a unit, and then he gets a dog and it's the naughtiest dog in the world. Is that, do I need
to go that direction? You could make your dog the main character, but you would then have a supporting cast around him. So trying, if he was being naughty and jumping on the couch, then I can see lots of illustrations supporting that, with people trying to dive on him and do all this different stuff. So you can go either way. You can have the boy, I like the boy idea, who wanted one, and then he gets him and there's all sorts of things go wrong. So the outcome is, so yep, go with that one, because I think you'd find that quite satisfying to write that story, and it could have a lot of humor in it.
Yes, yeah.
Later on, we'll get to the rule of three, where you would have a series of 3 things he.
So we will sometimes, I think Robin's internet will sometimes freeze, but hopefully everyone's working on the character at the moment. You've got the list up there of things to do. I was the one trying to work on a group, but that's actually helped me a lot, because now I realise one kid could be the main kid in this group.
You try with that dog one and see how it works out. And you can perhaps, you don't have to, we just wrote an Australian animal up there probably because I've written so many Australian animal books, I like them, but you don't have to. These are prompts, right? So if whichever way you want to take your story about your dog, it would have universal appeal with a child in it, and the dog, because a lot of kids would have those problems, and mum could be like, we'll have to get rid of that dog, and that sort of stuff. So do it that way, or the dog can be the character too. Try them out.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I will. Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks,
so I just need to know if you've all had a chance to come up with some ideas about who.
Yes, I think Robin's going to ask you if you've had a chance to come up with some ideas about who your character is. Is anyone has any more questions about character before she moves on?
I wonder if we could all put out what we've thought about in the chat, and we can write down what character prompts in there. So, Robin, I've just asked everybody if they want to write in the chat room what their characters are and what their problems are. If they want to, they don't have to.
Yep, so I'm typing mine. So if you'd like to type your character in there, give us a little bit of an idea.
In the meantime, keep writing about some characters you think, and go back to a memory. I have sitting in my cupboard waiting to be illustrated a story about the willow tree I played in as a child, but the subliminal message in that one is about the cycle of life, and it goes through the seasons, but it's about a child who plays forever in this tree. And another one is how I used to play in my mother's wedding dress. It's just things like that, just little things. And I guess actually the pile-up story probably came out of a memory of when we used to do all those things. Even though we didn't have skateboards and scooters, we still played on our bikes. So you grab an idea and think, because children these days don't often have those same experiences. So what you're actually doing is putting it in a context where it's funny or little bit gooey. So somehow they have to overcome these things. You can write actually about anything at all. So is anyone going to share? I haven't seen yours. Okay.
Yeah, there's a few in the chat room. Robin, can you see the chat room, or would you like Christine to share?
No, I can see it.
Okay, maybe Christine wants to share them anyway so that everyone can hear about the characters.
Yes, what have we got here? Fred Stays With Me is about a girl who owns the dog.
Oh, yeah. I was
Great
just
book.
sharing a book
okay, yep.
about
that was
dogs.
from Charmaine. From Charmaine again. I have a group of children playing Dungeons and Dragons. Each sees themselves as their character. Now Robin has inspired to make a bard the main child in the story. They will save the day in their game. Does everybody know what Dungeons and Dragons is?
Yes,
No?
maybe a little bit too old for the young age group.
Yeah,
they are playing younger and younger now. They have picture books that have alphabet books based on Dungeons and Dragons, because the parents are bringing their kids in earlier.
That's all fantasy.
Alwyn says she's going to write about herself as a small child.
Good on you, Alwyn. Yeah, but what it has to be is anecdotal. So you grab that one little snapshot and turn it into a story.
I had my grandson, my story is one that my grandson shared with me, and he came up to me one day and held his hand up. He says, I found a baby monster. And he was all upset and worried because he thought the mother monster was going to come and try and find the baby monster. So we had to make up a story. I think Robin's frozen again.
To the happiness of the child. So, so you can do all that. So memories are a good way to find ideas anyway. So the other thing is just go and watch children playing. What makes them happy? What turns them on?
Fleur Nicholson has shared, Fred dreams of being an adventurer, and he would be if he wasn't so afraid of everything. He sees monsters everywhere and he has an overactive imagination. That's lovely.
Yeah, that's really ticking all the boxes, isn't it? Because
it is.
Yeah, that's who was that?
That was Fleur.
Who?
Fleur. Fleur, like in Harry Potter, Fleur. Fleur.
I can't see Fleur.
That's okay.
There she is.
There's another one there too.
There's Fleur.
Oh, there you are.
Yeah. Oh, she's gone again.
Okay. That ticks all the boxes because you've got an interesting character children relate to, a genuine problem. So I think that sort of ticks the boxes for me, and you could run with that. So and it's just so you've got your
Nope, she's stopped again.
Go, Chris.
And our next person to share is Sally Mansfield, and her story is called Little Wren for 6 to 7 year olds. Impulsive.
With illustrations, the illustrator, if you're independently publishing, will get involved with that with you, which is a fantastic thing. It's just wonderful to interact with an illustrator. I just saw a message pop up and then it disappeared.
We've got another suggestion from Sally Mansfield about her story called Little Wren, about a 6 to 7 year old, impulsive, loves cooking with Granny, keeps putting her fingers in the mix. I hope it's not what it's going. Lies to cover up impulsive traits, but all is fine in the end with a recipe at the end. I love that idea.
I love that. Yeah. And I love the name too, Ren. I think that's
Little
great.
Wren. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
That lends itself to that repetition, doesn't it? You can just see it.
Yeah.
Things happening with the mixer.
And the kids will want to make that recipe. Whatever recipe you put in the book, they will want to make it. I think that's a brilliant idea.
Like that, you can put the recipe in the back.
Yes, yes. And I would, you could even have it as a teacher's note, I think, as well, or something on your website for people to go to your website to grab as well.
Yeah. Or have more recipes on your website, so they have to go there to get extra recipes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's another one.
Yeah, and so Emma Renison has said, I'd like to write about my son's first day at school. He was really excited, but also worried about it. Bigger kids, etc. At the end of the day, his wheelchair wheel got caught in a drain, and the bigger kids came, and between them all, they worked with him and helped him, which I'm thinking got his tire out of I like writing about disability as we struggle to find books with kids like him in, but would also like them not to always be specifically about disability. I
love that, Emma. I'm very on board with that. I think it's time for us to normalise the diversity in our society that is real, so rather than trying to make it always about the diversity. So I just think, I love that acceptance. And I also just love this because as a high school teacher, my most rat bag kids are the ones who will run and help someone if they need some help with something. And so I do love that moment too, when kids show you that they care.
Have we lost Robin? Oh, there's Robin.
Yeah,
you need to unmute yourself, Robin.
It's a problem my end.
It's all right. It's not a workshop on technology. It's a workshop on picture books.
So look, you get the picture. You're getting the idea. Yep.
I love all these ideas.
Yeah, I do too, and I can see their potential. Now it's changing that potential. So can you see how you've got your character and your problems kind of coming out of the character? Can you see that? It's built.
I think we've lost her again.
Yeah, I think so. I'm thinking that Robin's probably going to want me to change the slide in a moment. Maybe we'll do that anyway.
Audition with Alwyn. That came a different way. That came from Alwyn saying to me, "Can you write a children's picture book for 4 to 8 year olds?" Sort of. I think these are the words.
Is there a Charmaine? Is there a? Oh,
now that came from a different direction. Totally.
Robin, you're talking about Brave Denny now, are you? Because you are chopping in and out a little bit, but is that the one you're talking about?
I'm talking about Brave Denny. So that was a different one. I had to do a lot of research on that. So depending on what topic you're doing and where your idea is coming from, you may have to research it.
And Robin, I think we cut out on the key part there, if you want to just share with people the topic about Brave Denny, because I think that makes it quite a different book.
Yes. Well, Brave Denny, I was approached by Alwyn, who was with National Rural Women's Coalition, as to whether or not I would be able to write a picture book on domestic violence and empower the main character, who was about 5, 6, something like that, empower that child. So that child had to find a solution in this domestic violence situation. Now, that was probably one of the biggest challenges I've ever had. And I had to do a lot of research.
Yeah, it's a beautiful picture book.
I own that one. It's very, very good. It's a good read. Read it first, I think, because it is very deep. It is very, you don't want to write it if you want to be happy. Read it, sorry.
But that came at a different place. So it required a lot of research, having blissfully never having been in a situation like that myself. And it really, at one stage, I think Alwyn said to me, she said, "Oh, you don't have to get so sad." But when you really get into it and you become one with your character, you do. You feel for them. And if you can feel for your character, you can laugh with them, you can cry with them, you can do all of that, then you know you've got a good character.
Do you think you become the character sometimes, Robin?
I think they become your children. So if people these days ask me how many children I have to say 17 plus 4. So 23 kids. So yes, but they do get under your skin, Chris. And they do become part of you, but not necessarily straight away. The more you can develop them and more you know them, then
I think it's a really interesting thing to think about. When you're actually writing it, do you step into those character's shoes and write from their perspective, I suppose.
And I think another thing to question when you're learning to write, like Chris, like you and I are, do you hit those big topics, or should you start with something to learn to write picture books before you hit the big topics? Maybe. I don't know. I don't know the answer. Probably no one does. Make up your own mind.
We'll just,
Robin, I'm just going to let you know I've changed the slide to considerations now, because I think you were saying that you were ready to move on.
I am.
Yep, great.
Here's considerations. Okay. Have we? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm just flicking through my notes. Okay.
That's okay.
When you write your story, which you're about to do in a sec, stay in touch with your childhood, either through memories or contact with children and families. Understand children's interests and emotional needs. Really, really, really important. Because we should always respect children. And just because they're children doesn't mean they don't deserve respect. So,
what if you don't have children, or like they're all grown up, and you don't have grandchildren yet? What do you suggest then?
I would suggest, if you have friends who have families, just watch them. Go and watch children. I mean,
in an uncreepy way.
hang out outside primary schools.
I'm not saying you should go and volunteer and do this. Just watch them. Go down to the coffee shop.
The park.
Watch the kids say, "I want this, me." And
Coles.
there are kids everywhere. So you can observe them. So I don't think that's a huge problem.
So everybody has the opportunity is sort of what I was trying to get at.
Yep. And so if you have something really close to your heart, like I did with Lucy's First Disco, which is my book on epilepsy, and I finally had the courage to admit that I had it, I thought, well, if I'm going to write, I didn't want other children to spend their whole lives hiding it, as I had done, in case people didn't think I could do my job and all this business. So I wrote it, and then I thought, well, how hypocritical is it if I write a book about it and expect children to understand, and I'm not prepared to talk.
It's so good that she shared that.
And you can always find, and the example thing too, like I was in Coles the other day, a kid was whinging, "Mum, I want to go home. She said, "Right, we've got the pet food, we're heading home now." The kid went, "Yay, home, we're going home. And I have never related, at the end of the day, get my groceries to a kid so much. I was like, yeah, I feel you, buddy. I want to go home too.
All right. I don't mind sharing. You have to learn to share, but I wrote that book, and it's
unfortunately, Robin must be having a little bit of a bad day with her internet.
And
sorry about that, guys.
Yes, and we need to open up. And I've read that to my grandchildren, and they said, "Oh, so what you've got, Grandma?" I said, "Yep." I said, "Okay, turn the page." So it's just like better coming from you than from your granddaughter who's 15 getting in with someone who mistreats her because she doesn't know about it. So books can be very powerful. So write without prejudice. So self-explanatory. Read children's books. Go to the library sometime the next week and look up the children's section and research your topic if you're not sure about it. And write from the heart and the head. Now I would say write from the heart, and the head part will come. But you have to be involved in your story. It can't be. And people who say, "Oh, someone approached me and said, oh, will you publish my book? I've written this story and I want to make a lot of money." And I said, "Well, you're not going to."
With my art.
but if you want to write a story, do it because you want to write a story, because you want to leave something in the world, because you want children to learn something which they can do, and you want them to enjoy reading, all the right reasons, but don't want money, because there won't be the heart.
Write for the children, write for the readers,
Yeah.
and even the parents. Sometimes you have to think about when you're writing these things that there's parents reading them too. So sometimes you can put some little funny things in there that's just for the parents.
I'll change slides because it sounds like Robin is up to our next slide, which is about literary devices.
Now we're going on to literary devices. So these are how you put it together. So we know what we want to do. We've got our character, we've got our problem, we've got our setting, all of those things. In a picture book, so you want children eventually to read along or learn how to read, or just for the sheer enjoyment of it, you use literary devices. You use rhythm. So there's a lovely rhythm to the sound of the words. You can use rhyme. Not suggesting you do that straight away because that introduces another element, and that's something that's much harder. Repetition's fantastic, and that introduces the rule of three. Repeating things, or even have a look at the one below it, onomatopoeias. So say you've got this dog who's doing the wrong thing, there might be a word someone could call out every time the dog does something wrong. So like, or just repetition of the word stop, or every time the dog does something, stop, or something like that. Now, that's pretty lame, so don't use that one. You just use that. Repetition's huge in picture books, and it helps children learn, helps them anticipate what's coming next, and helps them, which will help them learn to read, because they say, oh, I know what's going to be on the next page, because you've set up a pattern. You set up a sort of a rhythm, and they know what's coming next. And so you'll get to the page and I'll say, blah, 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 like in Patrick. It's like, Patrick, where are you, boy? And he yells out, sorry, Captain, I was reading. So we actually put that in red so that kids could also know that that's what was said, and they not all yell it out. So it's engagement. So alliteration, using the same sound at the beginning of a word. Anthropomorphism, which is where you use an animal character. You can use similes. Humor. They love humor. I'm not really good at humor.
Yes, you are.
Am I?
Yes.
I thought I was one of those deep and meaningful people. But anyway.
Eddie, the chef, that's got humor in it.
Yeah, well, I guess it has.
The Pile Up. I'll just list a lot of your books. And Charmaine says kids love repetition because they can call out the line when it comes up.
That's right. That's it. And they can anticipate. So personification is what I said before. It's probably steer away from that. Stay with people.
What's personification?
It's where an inanimate object becomes your star. So we've got a pencil who's blunt and doesn't want to be blunt. I'm making this up, by the way.
It's okay. So you're doing well.
he goes through a series of trying to get sharp. Okay. Now, kids actually won't relate to a pencil. Not with the heart, they won't. Not to the degree that they can relate to a child or an animal. And it's easy, and giving an animal human characteristics is easy because we share so much in common with animals. We have shelter, we need food, we need water, all sorts of things, you know. So that's all good. You can use similes, but don't forget your sort of short frame you've got. And dialogue's great. That dialogue, I love dialogue, and there's so much with dialogue. If you're comfortable with having people speaking to each other, and remember that you've got, through all of this, you've got your illustrations. So if you have dialogue, you can. I did that in Can You Keep a Secret, where I just had pure dialogue, and then my editor said, "Oh, no, you have to put said such and such, and you have to put this, and you have to put that in." And I'm really sorry now that I actually took that advice and did it.
I think what Robin's talking about is dialogue tags at the moment.
Tags.
That if somebody speaks, you don't always have to say that he said or she said, because if it's very obvious who's speaking, they're extra words you just don't need, and it can look cleaner without it. But obviously if there's a few people, you'll use it to clear it up.
And the illustration
I was just clarifying,
usually
Robin, that you're talking about dialogue tags at the moment, because we lost you just for a moment. But that's okay. That's where I think we covered it.
I've just got my unstable connection again.
That's okay.
So
I'll move to next slide.
Use dialogue. Yep. And let's move on in case I get very unstable.
Oh, I like them. They're cute.
You have the best art for your books.
Oh, well,
all the art today is from Robin's books, by the way.
That's not from my books.
Oh, not this one?
No,
where's this come from?
They're the three pigs.
Yeah. Yeah, I get that.
And they're there because this is what you can use. This is what you should use.
Can I just say that's a really good illustration of what, because we all know the three pigs, but one's got a brick jumper on, one's got a straw jumper on, and one's got wood. Yeah, it's a way. Yeah, it's a way that an illustrator can tell you lots of things in one picture.
That's right. Well done. I hadn't picked that up. So the rule of three, try and use this if you can. It's a trio of events or characters is more humorous, satisfying, effective than any other number. It's more likely to be remembered because it combines both brevity and rhythm with the smallest amount of information. So there you go. So somehow in your story, if you're going to make this hero of yours, your star, do three things to get what they want, remember that three things, no more, three.
So is that three problems or three things they're going to do, or is that the same thing? Oops, stuck.
You'll never know.
Oh, no, I think it's three problems. I think they've got to be able to overcome three attempts to fix that problem. Yeah.
But I think Robin is also saying if you're going to have a group of kids, have three. I think she's just saying anything that you have multiple, three is good. Yeah.
Yeah, but just remember, three is good. And you have the three billy goats, gruff and there's others. But I guess I'm feeling the time pressure now. So I want you to do a little bit more story. So it's more likely that characters, so just remember these are the devices you use to write a story. And you don't have to use them all. Goodness heavens above, no. So the next 3 R's, not right. These are really, and Charmaine's been very clever and put R's on the jumpers. So the 3 R's, rhyme, rhythm, and repetition are probably the 3 easiest ones to work with. So repetition I love, because just by repeating things over and over again, it can be in the text, can be just in the pictures, it can be, as long as there's a repetition and rhythm, just the feeling of the story, the way that the text moves. Not too long, not too short. So, and I'll talk to you next time about how to cull words out of a story that you don't need. But right now, I don't know how we're going for time.
We've got half an hour left.
So what would be really good, I'm really happy to answer questions, but would be really good if you chose, just for an academic exercise now, it doesn't have to be a story that's going to change your life, but just for the exercise of it, and it's not always easy, just because it's for young children doesn't mean it's easy. Start writing a story, choose one of those characters and one of those problems, or if you've got some other idea, just start writing it.
There you go. Start writing.
So there we go, guys. You've got a few minutes to be writing while Robin is patiently waiting for you.
Do you think that while Robin said that a picture book is only 600 words, we can write more? So we could write 1,000 words and then cull it down.
Yeah, she was saying that sometimes I think she said the average is 500. But
okay.
Sometimes you can go over, often you can go under, and depending on the age group of the child too, because picture books go from obviously board books when they're little babies, newborn babies, right through to usually about 8 years old. But having said that, I use picture books in my classroom and my students are 12. So
helps.
You know,
yeah, helps everybody.
But the bulk of your age group, I think, is that 3 to 8, I think was the idea, that the bulk of the age group is there.
Yeah, I read picture books for me sometimes. I've got a couple I really love reading to the children, to my grandchildren. And it's fun. That's what I was saying. So sometimes you can write a picture book for the person reading it as well. And besides, they're the ones who's buying it as well.
Can you hear me?
Yes, you're back.
I'm so sorry about this.
That's
Anyway,
all right.
We're flexible. Really like you to spend some time now starting that story. So introduce those things that make a story in the first 2 or 3 pages, but you won't know which page it is. Just start writing. But in the first, let's call it first 3 or 4 sentences, you have to have introduced the character, the problem, and the setting. But the setting you can take out later because that's what the illustrator will put in. And then try the 3 R's and once you've got the problem established and take them through. But if it's a happy story, or it's a relationship between a young person and a grandparent, it can be not necessarily a problem, but things they'd like to do together, but they can't do because of something that's obstructing them. So there are no rules. And what we'd like to do after you've had a go, just get it started, because you're going to go away, because I'm going to give you some homework, and you're not going to wimp out and say, oh, this is too hard, but we'll really try. So we know that you've got to have a character. We know there's got to be. So I'm just going to be quiet. And if you have any questions, just type it in the chat room.
Yeah, Chris, I think there is a question there.
Yeah.
So,
KR Clary, Robin, could you please elaborate further on the character tags and habits? Oh, she's just frozen for a second.
She won't have heard you when she's frozen, so you have to say it again when she comes back. Yeah.
So Robin, KR Clary has said, Robin, can you please elaborate further on the character tags / habits, please? Look, maybe the rule of 3 might have to work here, and I'll get another go at it in a second when she comes back. I'll just leave everybody to be quiet until she comes back.
So in a book like this, you don't have to worry. I've got an unstable internet connection again.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry too much about that because you've got the illustrations to help you. But if you know what character tags are, like there's somebody who has a bad habit of doing something, you can tell the illustrator, especially if you're independently publishing, you get to work with the illustrator and say, look, I see my story as this, and this character, he has a habit of scratching, or when he's nervous, which tells you that he gets nervous. So they're what tags are. Did that answer the question?
Yeah, so I suppose you're saying that instead of you saying he scratched himself nervously, you would not put any of that. There would be no action tag. It would be just his, unless you would you weren't sure who the character who was speaking, then you would say Mum said or something like that. Would that be right?
You could, but you see, if you've got a really good, if your previous text led up to the fact that he's anxious and you have at the beginning that too frightened to come out of his room or and you set him up, you don't need to say he's anxious because people will see it. And what you can say, I mean, I broke all the rules when I did break Danny a bit, because opening, I actually described his emotion at the beginning, and I said, and I didn't see that. Danny lay in bed and pretended to be asleep. Everyone's told me that's powerful because the word pretended infers something's wrong. So you can do things like that, and you can write smells, because it's very hard to show smells. Although, you know, it's another thing I want to say. You can break rules too, you know.
Alwyn has asked, do we actually leave out adjectives because the illustration will cover this? Usually.
Yeah, you wouldn't say a billowing red dress.
Because you see that in the image.
Does that help?
Does that help, Alwyn?
Yeah, the question, the way to think about that is, can that be shown as an illustration? And if it can be shown as an illustration, it goes. Now, what you can do for yourself when you're writing is, on the side, you can write, below, keep wearing a red dress. So a few ideas to pass on. You can't do that if you're going to be traditionally published, because they only want the manuscript. But if you're going to be working with an illustrator as an independent or self-published person, then you've got the opportunity to sit down with them. And I've done that with all the people I've worked with. And I say, I see it like this. And then Trevor, who did Aaron, who did Pirates Don't Read, he said, how do you see the pirate? How do you see Patrick? I said, well, I see him with black hair and da-da-da-da. He said, yeah, I see him with black hair too. And I said, it's just a little bit cheeky and da-da-da-da-da. So he built that into the picture. He did a really good job. And that's another thing. You won't ever.
Oops, you won't ever.
You won't ever. It's just, you won't.
Yeah.
No doubt about that. It just won't.
Yeah. Now, I actually think sometimes adjectives are in there if it's more about an emotion or, you know, I know we do a lot of show, don't tell, but the pictures show. But I think there's things about, if you wanted to say that the dog is all muddy, you can actually say it even though you see it, because that might be part of the story. So I think I'm trying to think of that story that we all know from our childhood, Harry the dirty dog. They do use the word dirty because it's part of the storyline. So I think sometimes you can use it, but mostly. And the other thing is, if it's not relevant to story, like I don't think you'd say, oh, it was a brown dog. If it's not relevant, one, the kids will see it anyway. And two, it's good to let the illustrator have their input on how they see it as well. I like to see how the two stories come together.
Yes.
And Emma's asked, she says, so with traditional publishing, where you wouldn't get to work with an illustrator, would you potentially get illustrations that don't look anything like what you imagine? Yes.
Exactly that. I had my first two books, which were educational texts published by Cambridge University Press. That's before I decided to not wait around and just went out on my own. And I got what they called the second page drafts, and they were big A3 sheets of paper with the pictures on for me to have a look at. And one of them was called The Surfies, and it was a picture of my son with his son surfing. And I wanted to do that because they loved doing it, and it got accepted. When it came back, my son was a hippie and my grandson was a girl. So that was interesting. So I decided to leave it like that as a new author. I was told not to make waves. And as it turned out, it was quite good because they were non-stereotypical roles for a dog. So it worked out, but it's funny. And you do learn to accept these things. I have put my foot down sometimes when someone wanted to change something, and that is actually very, very relevant in Grandpa's Gold. So in Grandpa's Gold, as you get into the story, on the that side, down the bottom, you'll see a little ghost picture.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so on the other side, halfway down a rocky slope, they found a bent and battered old, so I've actually written it in there, tin can. But I did that because a lot of children from the city don't understand what's actually being found in the country, with a rusty base. Not gold, said Grandpa, treasure, said Jake. So I wanted a ghost picture of the old timer who 150 years ago had been finding all these things, right?
So like a memory.
Yeah, so it's making connection to the past.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to find.
Oops, we've lost her again.
Mm.
It's actually a very good book, that one, if you want to talk about the Australian outback and finding gold. She actually goes in depth into finding gold with the paraphernalia they use.
Pepin?
I was just saying that the book actually shows how to find gold and what pieces of equipment that you use, but also incorporating it as a picture book.
Yeah, but I wrote a non-fiction book to go with it. So because
Robin also has teacher's notes for all of her books as well, which is really good.
Well, yeah, that's the teacher side of me going out.
They're good. They're good. You can do it all with your grandchildren. It makes the book last longer. They can do more activities with it, which I really love.
That's good.
Sorry.
Anyway, who's got how far?
Emma says, I wrote, oh no, that was K.R. Clary. Emma, I wrote my manuscript. I can see my body, very open-ended, and the illustrator that Charity assigned went in a direction I didn't foresee. It was very creative.
Okay, and that was a picture book?
Looks like a picture book, yes.
And I guess that's kind of my point about changing, about breaking rules sometimes. At some stage, there are a lot of rules, heaps and heaps of rules. So but if you think of where the wild things are and some of those things, they don't actually follow the structure that you would normally find. I mean, the grammar is different. When you think, probably one of my finest examples of a good picture book is God, The Very Hungry Caterpillar, because it's so brief and you have so much happening. There's so much happening in there, and it's got the whole life cycle here, and it's just such a clever book. So it's just like, yeah, so cool. I love that. I love the surprise ending at the end too, because you don't really see, well, as an adult you might see it coming, but you certainly don't see it coming as a child. And it opens up a world of discussion after that.
So do you think that picture books should have that? So like metaphors and other meanings and that type of thing?
What did you say? Menopause?
Yes, metaphors. No, metaphors.
Okay.
Like similes, but stronger.
Why would children need to know about menopause?
No, metaphor. Metaphor.
But maybe they want to know why grandma.
A metaphor. You can use a metaphor, but you can use like the sun smiled, right? Sun smiled. That's a metaphor.
Yep.
You can use simple metaphors, and they have to be in the language a child would understand. And they have to be appropriate to the actual theme and setting of the story. Similes are good too. You huffed and puffed or something. You can do that. You can use them, but use them in picture books. I would suggest, that's my opinion, sparingly and appropriately. So, but I think for your first story, character, problem, missetting, which you can think of now as your illustrations, and think about using a couple of those literary devices.
I also noticed, are you there, Robin? I was just going to ask Robin about the word. I don't know if everybody understands what onomatopoeia is. It's one of my favourite things in children's picture books. But what that is when they use the bang or the pow.
Introduction, it has the action part, which is where all of those things are going to happen. And then it has that nice satisfactory conclusion at the end. So
I was just saying to our guests that about onomatopoeia, because not everybody would understand what that is. And you mentioned it just before. So I was just explaining that it's the bam and the pow, and it's like the old Batman and Robin shows, and they used to go bam,
especially
pow.
for the dog books, it'll be really good because dogs don't just do one noise. You could have a whole collection of noises dogs make.
And this is what's so good. That's where's Robin Thomas gone? Can't see her.
Here I am.
She's on there.
That see in a book like Robin's with the dog, every time the dog does something, it could be a different sound, and then maybe the dog does something, and it's more of an ouch or something,
rash,
or something. But it's like you can use onomatopoeia. Kids love onomatopoeia, by the way.
I can't actually use the words we actually say when he does something naughty. That's
what it is. Words that sound like they are, basically. So kids love it. I'm not all too keen personally on text that dribbles all over the page. But
I love that. I know,
but that's the early childhood teacher coming out in me. Because I'm always thinking when kids are reading, but I have to embrace that and think, all right, that's a bit of a prejudice, not a prejudice so much as an overlap of
how you like it. It's how Robin likes it. And everybody has their own style that they like.
Yeah, I think that's okay to keep to your own style. You don't have to change because some people like it. You're never going to make everyone happy anyway. So I think that's fine to have your own style. How's everyone going formulating their little plot outline at the moment to make sure they've got a character setting and plot? Is anyone having any questions, or you getting that today? The idea is to get that so that we can go away and write a draft.
Yes.
Oh, you're back, Robin. Great. Sometimes I think you don't know when you get cut out.
Frozen.
Well, I was hearing you. That's
okay.
I was hearing you, so I didn't think I cut out.
Okay.
So I'm definitely going down to Telstra to see about my connection. So
yeah, and that's okay. We've gotten all the best bits from you today, and we've all managed to fuddle through. I mean, we're still going, guys. I'm not ending it. I'm just saying, don't worry too much about that because I think we've all been getting some gold today. I know that I've changed some things in my manuscript because of what you've said today.
That's good.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know
when you want me to change that slide too.
Yeah. Oh, here we go. I'm gone again.
You're actually still here.
I'm still here. Yeah. So it's like, if you really, really, really want to write a picture book, have a crack at it. Don't be daunted. It could be a gem. And once you've done one, and the first one's always the hardest. And I remember writing my first one when I did a course, and it was a correspondence course. And I thought, what am I going to write about? What am I going to write about? What am I going to write about? And I was stressing my head off. I didn't know. And that's actually Grandpa's gold. So I thought, okay, I'll write about a little boy and his grandfather, and that's the relationship. That's a sub meaning that, different generations can have fun together and da-da-da. And then it went further, and I thought, oh, I can actually bring the bush to the children.
So yeah, and I know Robin's quite frustrated with her internet, but yeah.
there's nothing wrong with anything, and I have been personally slammed at with a story years and years ago, and it's a horrible feeling. So the last thing we want to do is for anyone to feel uncomfortable, but nobody's going to do that. And I think one of the good things about editing is that you find something good about the story, and you find something that maybe could, oh, here's a good idea. What have you thought about this? That sort of editing, not, oh, it sucks. You know, you don't want to do that. So it's just a starting point. And I know how people who've never done it before must feel, because whenever I sat down and wrote something for the anthology, I thought, I don't know how to do this, because it was out of my comfort zone. But it's very enriching to step out of your comfort zone. And am I talking to myself, or can you hear me?
No, we're all listening.
We can hear
you.
That's so funny, because you're so silent, and it's like, okay. So I'm reading something. Where's my to get? Whoops. What was that last one? I missed it.
The last thing that popped up. So we've got, where does one go to get some actual feedback about the story before publishing? Then how do you find a publisher?
Okay.
So Sally, can you also clarify, do you mean before publishing, like if you're self-publishing, or do you mean before you send it to a publisher? Because I think it's a good point, because sometimes people self-publishing skip that step, and it's enforced on you if you send it to a publisher, but it's important if you're not going to. But do you want to start on that, Robin? How can people?
Oh, okay. I thought I was waiting for that. I was waiting.
Yeah.
The answer. First, it's what you do. You get the story right. Okay. We as a group can be self-supportive. You can maybe contact somebody if you approach, or say who would like to meet up, or you make your own little subgroup. You make your own little beta reader group. If you're going to self-publish, you really, after it's finished, you need to get it professionally edited, because it doesn't matter. I get everything professionally edited, doesn't matter what it is. Even though I professionally edit other people's things, when I write something, I always get my own professionally edited, because sometimes we get too close, and sometimes we forget things or miss something. So before you actually get an illustrator, you need to have it right. Because if you get an illustrator and then you go and have it edited, and the editor says, oh, that's no good, you've got to change something or other, then you go back to the illustrator and say, oh, I've got to change something. They'll charge you for that, to have it changed. So you get your manuscript right, and then you get your illustrator, and you choose an illustrator if you're self-publishing or independently publishing. And that means if you set up a company, if you're your own business, that's the difference between independent and self-publishing. So you get that right, but you can get feedback from people around you, people who know, people who don't mind. But at the end of the day, it's kind of like get a professional editor. You can get that through Queensland Writers Centre if you're not sure where to go. And I would hope in the next session we can get to the stage where we can perhaps give each other some ideas if people aren't worried about people saying anything to them that might, because it's really hard sometimes to take sort of not negative advice, but like, look, maybe this could make it a bit stronger, or I got a bit bored down here, or I don't really understand this. But it's invaluable to have that happen, because you sometimes just don't see it. Did that answer? I hope that answered the question.
Yeah, so, I think so. And we've got another question, but I'm also just going to pop in and let everyone know that I have set up a try booking form already for the next workshop, which will be April 16, which will be on bringing your draft along. Don't worry how messy or rough it is, bringing it along so we can actually work on our drafts, and Robin's going to give us some tips on editing. So after this Zoom, because I'm not sure what happens if I get off the page now, if that changes anything. So after the Zoom, I will load that into the public Facebook page for Rainforest Writing Retreat, and I'll also load it into our private Rainforest Writing Retreat page for those of us who are retreaters. And you'll be able to book for the next one as well. So I just want to say that in case anyone leaves early and they miss that information. So there was another question here. Robin Thomas has asked, how hard is it to get an illustrator?
Well, it depends how much you pay, basically.
And so Christine and I are both working with an illustrator at the moment, the same illustrator, and we have hired them through going to a group called Write Links. So if you're interested in writing for children, it's a good one to join. They meet at South Bank once a month.
Fabulous with Danny, because to offset the subject, I wanted gentle illustrations and soft illustrations so that it wasn't scary and just didn't sit on a shelf. So we did actually very, very intricate teacher notes for that one. But there is a site you can go to, the illustrator's site. Just look around. I mean, I have now relationships with the people I work with. However, I'm in the middle of all these Mookie books, which are a series I've decided to write, which are probably the simplest things I've ever written.
Yeah.
And they're
most illustrators, I believe, Robin, correct me if I'm wrong, because I only have very limited experience with one illustrator. You'll sign a contract and you'll need to pay some money up front, but then you'll pay, there's an amount that you'll pay at the end of the process, which takes quite a long time. So it's not like you will need all that money up front.
And it depends on your relationship with your illustrator. If your illustrator has an agent, oh, whoop-de-doo. I tried to approach somebody, and
okay, so I think Robin's about to say that if they're working with an agent, it might be a bit more difficult to get them. But yeah, getting to know illustrators as best you can. Obviously, you can always have
you have to think about
deals of people. Yeah, Robin, sorry, we missed that because you did froze that you found someone with an agent.
Yeah, found someone with an agent, and then it becomes a whole different ball game. So when an agent gets involved, it becomes a lot more formal. When I work with the illustrators like this one now, he's worked for me before. He came to my house for lunch and I cooked him dinner, and we sat down and we chatted about it, and he said, oh, I've got a really good idea about had this and that, and had a wonderful afternoon. And then he got engaged in the character and he got involved in the story. So how you find them? I mean, I can obviously give you the names of the ones I work with and you can approach them. And I'm sure illustrators always need money, just like everybody else. So, Trevor,
and it is very labor intensive. The illustrations are very labor intensive.
So if you have a good relationship with an illustrator, they will go out of their way for you. And sometimes it depends how long your book is, and depends how they work it out, whether they do it by the hour, whether they do it by page. So you can expect minimum, I hope I'm not speaking wrongly here, but minimum $150 in illustration. So can be that. But what I really love is are the vignettes, you know, the ones that are, just little pictures that don't take up the whole page, but they've got a lot of white space around them. But it makes the picture pop a little bit more. But you're welcome. Well.
Oh, Alwyn. Okay, great. Thanks for coming, Alwyn. It was lovely to hear about. I love your story ideas. So good luck with that. So, yeah, I guess we have about 5 minutes left, guys. So I guess if you've got any questions, probably now's a good time to put them. I will change that slide. Your homework, I'm just going to tell you what your homework is in case Robin is frozen for a little while. Your homework is to take those elements that you have today and try and get a draft. Do not stress if you don't think it makes the right number of pages or right number of words. The idea is you come with something really rough and Robin's going to help you with that next time. So you've got 4 weeks to get that done. So plenty of time to play around with it. If you get a chance to try and polish it, you can, but you don't have to. You can bring scraps of napkins that you've written on for your draft idea if you like. Robin's back, that's great. KR Clary has also put a link in there, guys. So before you go, you may want to click on that link that shows you a place to look for some illustrators.
Thank you for that.
Yeah. And yeah, so Robin, I've just told, I don't know if you heard me, I just told everyone what their homework was so that
I heard that.
they would be able to get started on that.
I would say don't be worried if you've gone over the 500 words. Just write your story. And what we can do next week is to help you identify the areas that don't need to be in the story. Like a rule of thumb would be, have a look at a sentence. If you can see a visual picture that goes with that, then that probably has earned its place in there. But if you have a sentence that says absolutely nothing, she felt sad, she felt something or other, but there's nothing an illustrator can actually draw for it. So it probably doesn't need to be there, but we can help identify these things and find filler words that are just there, that are wasting space. So, but that's all part of the editing process and very important. Yeah. I've actually changed my one book. One was supposed to be a book about children and the illustrator couldn't draw people.
Oh, okay. that is a problem then. So you may want to find out that if you have a dog book, you may want to check that your illustrator, how they draw dogs, that you like it.
Oh, they'll have an
Now, we do have a question from KR Clary, but I'll also pop in with a little bit of a disclaimer about that. KR Clary said, Robin, what do you know about picture book writing publishing that you wished you knew at the beginning? I will let you know, Robin can give you a quick answer, but we'll let you know that we're doing a series of these workshops with Robin. The next one's on getting our draft ready, but there will be one actually very in-depth that will go into publishing and, submitting or going to self-publishers and things like that too in the future. We'll take it step by step. But do you have one thing you'd like to share now, Robin?